Boom, we're back. Office hours 15. What Brennan said. Brennan, what is this office hours going to be somewhat about, and who is our guest? Just a little recap.
Our guest was Dr. Jess Matthews, and this is going to be about achieving wellness. Nick,
I love wellness.
I strive for wellness.
Yeah.
To be well.
Yes. Like, I didn't really know what it was, to be honest, before. Like, I really don't know if I had any sense of, like, in some working definition of what wellness was. So this was really helpful for me because now I know that I can move towards it more so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you have anything that you really wanted to talk about today that has been on your mind?
Well, I think, in you and I discussing her 3 points that I asked her to give me, like 3 keys to like achieving wellness in your life. The 2 of the things that she gave us were like all 3 of them were fantastic, but 2 of them have been specifically on my mind. And that is, number 1, like just gaining a good perspective on like what you're trying to do and what it means to like live well. Mm-hmm. So let's go into that one first, and then we'll dive into the second one after.
Perfect. So it's all about like the perspective you take.
Yep.
Depending on like your experiences or what happens to you or what things that you're doing. So what's an example?
And I even think, like respecting where you are and like gaining perspective on like you are where you are, and that's just where you are, and like that's okay. But then also feeling extremely empowered to know that like you have a lifelong journey of striving for a more healthful life in front of you, and every day you can take a step in that direction.
Personal anecdote. Is there something that you could share from your current experience about like something that you want to maybe achieve or work towards, and you could have a bad perspective or a good perspective, and what those could be?
Well, sure. One of the places where I am an absolute idiot is just like convincing myself that and this is probably like a, mid to late 20s, early 30s type of a dilemma for a huge majority of people. But like convincing myself that like I can still maintain the volume of physical activity that I once did, right? Like that's classic.
Yeah.
Where like people, especially when you start going from like, you wake up and you get to school and you're all hyped up or whatever, and then they give you recess, lunch, and after school practice of physical activity, or like just being up and walking around, whatever that is. And then all of a sudden, or like in college, and like maybe you're doing intramurals, you're biking to class, you're riding your longboard, like you're walking around campus, like you're up and moving all day. Then you hit your first job and it's like, cool, stay in this 50 square feet for the next 8 hours, and then go try and do everything you want to do. Like you just derail your capacity to do things on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And I have had to humble myself when it comes to like, oh yeah, like I can do 30 minutes on the bike, and like I can go do some squats, and like why don't I take the dogs for a walk? But then like I'm cramming all of that in for 3 hours, like really tight time span. And it's like I just am very, very aware in the last like year or so that like if I did that every day, I could not recover from it because I'm too sedentary during the workday.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it. So really trying to check myself. And then part of that is like, even at college, right? I could eat like an absolute fiend.
At college, you still can eat like
No, I still can, but I have to be much more aware of finding balance in all of this stuff.
Yes. Because of the sedentary lifestyle that's forced upon you somewhat.
And like, so part of that too is when during the day, like I am pretty good about not just being in my chair all day, but I'm also working from home right now because of, everything going on in the world. So I don't have anywhere to be. I don't have anyone's office to go stop by. Like I get up and walk to my kitchen on my lunch hour. So like 10-minute stretch breaks, or 5 minutes of these workouts called Tabatas, where you do like a 20 seconds of work with 10 seconds of rest for 8 rounds. So it's only 4 minutes.
It's an absolute beast.
They are
10 seconds.
They are
is not 10
brutal.
seconds.
Yeah. Right when you think you recover, you can come out hot on that next 20 seconds and it will just bury you.
Oh, it will.
So things like doing air squats in that fashion, or jumping lunges, I know, which is one that you did this past weekend that got you, you were doing it in the sand, which is just absolutely aggressive. Like, slow down.
It wrecked my
your whole weekend.
Yeah. Oh man.
So finding things like that to do that can just promote my body not feeling like, because at the end of the day, your body is an adaptation machine, right? It is designed to conform to the stimulus that it is presented with. So when you weight train consistently for prolonged periods of time, your body will adapt by putting on muscle to handle the loads that it's being presented with.
Right.
That's just an adaptation that the human body undergoes. Well, if you sit on your butt, your body's like, oh, you know what? Like, I don't need any of the muscles like in my lower back. Like, let's start atrophying those bad boys.
See ya.
Like, I don't use my legs ever. Let's just start eating that muscle away.
Oh, we're overusing our fingers. Arthritis. What's up?
Yeah. So like, trying to find ways of stimulating like my entire body throughout the day to remind myself that don't start thinking that this is a usual thing. Like, we still got shit to do today.
Right. I think this is a great point, because I think this is, like you're saying, for people who work in maybe a sedentary type job, like, this is an experience that a lot of people have of like being very active and then going to working longer hours than what school typically is, and being super like mentally and physically drained from like not moving. And then also having this high focus for 8 hours. There's a perspective that you could take of like, God, I'm so tired, I'm just not going to do anything. I need to like maybe relax. And that'll just like kind of keep you in that cycle of like really being sedentary. But if you take this perspective of, okay, maybe I need to implement like 5-minute breaks or some type of physical movement throughout my day so that my lifestyle is a little different and it's not so sedentary, then you can adapt with this change. But it is threatening. This changes a lot, because I remember the first like week of doing some type of office job for me. When I got home at like 5 or 6 p.m., I was like, oh my God, like I'm dead. Like, I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
But once I started to, I guess, make smaller changes and then kind of force myself to like get some energy going and release some energy, then I slept way better. And throughout the day, I felt like I was just way more focused.
Yeah. Like, this is like probably not something that people like think about as like being a trade that they would willingly partake in. But like, for most people, being on like your absolute top-notch A game for their job is not fully necessary, right? You've got to be present, you've got to be attentive, you've got to be able to like devote yourself to your task. But like, you don't need the same level of attentiveness that some other tasks may require. So what I'm proposing that a mindset shift that maybe can help people think about is like, take your like a morning, if you're having a hard time like at the end of the day, like you just talked about, getting home and being like, damn, I'm super tired, like I don't want to work out. I think you should use the morning to rob your job of your energy. Like, intentionally be like, no, I'm like, working out is more important than my job. Like, my health is more important than my job. If I am not healthy, I will not be able to show up in my total capacity for my job. So steal, what may end up being like the last 40 minutes of your job's energy and put it and use that energy for what is going to benefit you long term in the morning. I don't even think it's going to be a clear trade on that as far as energy goes, but like, think of it that way, as like, I'm going to go wake up for 40 minutes. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get my body going for the day. And that way during the day, after I use up all my energy, I'm not making the excuse for myself when I get home. I've already done it. And if anything is going to suffer, the last 40 minutes of my workday are going to suffer, not my health and my body, because I can't do it when I get home.
Right. Yeah, I'm very with that. I hope that can be like put into more people's lives. Mornings are like always super hard for me, I feel.
Oh, they're brutal.
With like really trying to put in a workout. Like I feel like I always have to do workouts later in the day. But it is tough because when I do work out in the morning prior to like school or work, I feel pretty fantastic going into the day.
Oh yeah. And I think to your point, like there's no denying the importance of a really thorough warm up routine if you're going to work out in the morning, right? Like you can't go from literally on the brink of being unconscious, right? Like asleep in your bed, like your body's in the most like subdued state it can possibly be in, to all of a sudden demanding high output from your body. Like you need to prime yourself for that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that's like a super big issue. And I think those are where people's habits start to fall apart, right? Like,
yes,
it's that transition that people cannot seem to figure out how to navigate. And like more companies are prioritizing it, and like they're promoting like, oh, take your 10-minute walks throughout the day. But like, I apologize for the people who really, and like, I love that people love their 10-minute walks every few times a day, but it's not enough. It's just straight up not enough. If you want to maintain your functional capacity into your later years, you have to do enough on a regular basis to maintain muscle mass. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
Because a decrease, sarcopenia, a decrease in your muscle mass heading into your old age, is literally one of the biggest risk factors for mortality. If you cannot get out of your bed, get off the toilet or whatever, and you fall and you break a hip, you're in the hospital, you lose even more muscle mass because you're bedridden for weeks. Your muscle mass is tied into your immune system. It's tied to so many things. So like having a stable muscle mass into your later years is probably one of the most important things for longevity that anybody can do. And the best part is, to achieve that, you have to do so many of the other things that also promote a healthy lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So like to achieve the muscle mass, you're going to do all of these other things that are like pretty comfortably recognized as like healthy habits, like going to the gym, walking, riding that stationary bike, doing some, intervals on the stationary, lifting a few weights, doing some lunges, like whatever it is.
No split squat soda.
No split squat Tabatas, says Nick, but
yeah.
But yeah,
Hard
just
pass.
Like doing whatever it can. And like, you don't need like some absurd amount of muscle mass, but you can't deny that it's like an extremely vital part of health, is having the capacity to, express your body's physiology.
Yeah. So this ties into the second point that she made about like enjoying the process.
Oh yeah. Great segue.
Right?
What a guy.
Look at you. You did that subconsciously, Brandon.
Probably,
beautiful. But like if we, like you touched on walks, if we just take that for a second, like people love walks. They talk about how refreshing they are. And it's like, there's that hint.
Yeah, they are great.
There's that taste though.
Yeah.
Like if we do these other things too, it's just going to make them feel even better and better. So I agree with what you're saying. And then also with enjoying the process. So I told you that I'm reading Atomic Habits by James Clear, and it's just breaking down like why habits are so important and pretty much what habits are. And he talked about how starting a new habit, you should limit yourself to doing something every day for only 2 minutes. And so if you wanted to start exercising or doing something like that, go grab weights or ride a bike for 2 minutes and no more. And then as you do that each day and you time yourself to only do 2 minutes, you're going to start telling yourself like, you know what, I'm already doing this. Maybe I should just start it a little bit longer and maybe go 5 or 10 minutes. And then over time, it just keeps on progressing. But you set like such a low bar for yourself that you can accomplish that every day, and boom, habit.
Yeah, I've been hearing the same thing. I listened to a podcast called Mind Pump. And it's, it's three guys who sit around a table and like discuss things going on in the world. And then they answer like common fitness questions. And they've got like probably close to 60 years of personal training experience between the three of them. And one of the things that one of the hosts was saying is that they used to take their clients and say like, and people who were like very like, hey man, I don't want to work out. Like, I'm not really into this. Like my doctor says I need to do it, but like, I don't want to do it. And they're like, can we do 1 day a week? 1 day. And they're like, yeah, sure. Like we can do 1 day a week. And it's like, and they've said, I don't want you to do anything else outside of this. I don't care. I'm not going to give you some program or routine to do outside of this. 1 day a week, show up with me. That'll be a workout. And they said like clockwork, people would be like, hey, is there anything like extra I can start doing to like, add some extra exercise in? It's like, why don't we start going 2 days a week? But yeah, like you're saying, like set the attainable goal for yourself to start, and then get yourself hooked on it to the point where like that one workout day is like your favorite thing that you feel like you need to do more. But because to your point, and even like kind of to what I was alluding to, is like I have to check myself with how much volume I can handle in a week. Like I can't do everything every day. I have to do, if I do 3 fairly difficult days, I have to take a day off, maybe even 2 days off, depending on how hard they were. And, that could still include like going for a walk or whatever, or doing some like yard work and still like utilizing my body or whatever. But, yeah, like, if people who are trying to build habits of starting to work out and they haven't for a long time, and they go in and they're like, I got to do 30 minutes, 5 days a week. I'm going to, do 30 minutes of something else that's more, low volume. Like it's so easy to burn yourself out. Like you have to work yourself up, not only to the habit, but you've got to like I was saying before, like part of those habits are also those adaptations, right? Like your body needs to catch up with the volume you're presenting it with. Don't go from 0 to 60. Like you got to hit every gear first of your car. It's a 6-speed transmission, Nick. You can't just throw it in 6.
No, you can't.
Can't do it. You got to start in first. Got to start in first.
Yeah. This is something too that was talked about in the book of like, it's great to set these larger long-term goals. Like say you want to lose like 10 pounds or 5 pounds, or you want to drink a lot more water a day. But if that's the only goal that you specify and that you focus on, you're obviously like going to stress yourself out and probably not get there. But if you identify the micro goals of, okay, I'm going to do this for 5 minutes each day, and that's what I'm going to start with, and then we'll see where that goes, and you like really specify those types of goals, then these process goals will feel like more natural and they'll get you results. It's this small, like Dr. Matthews said as well, this small, consistent habits that we employ each day are what are going to show us like the big results in the end.
Yeah. And like, there's a guy named Mark Sisson too, who had a company called Primal Kitchen. He sold it to Kraft Heinz, but, he also does like, he wrote a few books and, all this stuff, but he has this idea of like the micro workouts, and that like kind of caught fire as like a trend for a little while, but like trying to think of it, here's another way even of thinking about it, right? Is like daily and weekly, you like as a typical workout routine, you accumulate a certain amount of volume, right? So for the average gym goer who's going 1 hour a day, let's say 4 to 5 times a week, they're accumulating 4 hours to 5 hours in 1 week of physical activity, like intense physical activity, let's say. Well, if you think of it in terms of 4 15-minute sessions over the same, like over the each day for the 4 to 5 days, but then maybe you take a few of those 15-minute sessions and you put them other places, it's really hard to wear yourself down in 15 minutes.
Unless you do a split squat.
Unless you do, yeah. Yeah, but even then you can just focus on other things for the rest of the week, right?
Yeah, and you
so
feel
like
good.
thinking about how can you spread these 10 to 15 minute workouts out throughout your day to like maybe just do like, sets of 5 reps of push-ups, set a 5 to 10 minute timer, and just like do 5, take a little rest, do 5, take a little rest, do 5, take a little rest. Like you could do a ton of push-ups in a short amount of time.
Oh yeah.
And then like if you did that 2 times a week, and then, later in the afternoon, like while you were at the kitchen, you just like did some air squats while you were cooking dinner, and we're just like it's really easy to amass the volume if you just structure your day to allow for the volume, and it doesn't need to be 1 hour at the gym. Like I've jumped on my stationary bike at home for 15 minutes on my lunch, and like it's just a great way of breaking up like the sedentary nature of it. And like so I think people often think that like, oh man, I can't make it to the gym. It's like, great, don't go to the gym.
Yeah.
Find what are like 4 or 5 movements. Like, can you get a pull-up bar somewhere in your house? Even if you're just doing 1 rep, I do these things every once in a while it's called an EMOM, but it's just an acronym that stands for every minute on the minute. You do X number of whatever the movement you're doing is. So you set a 10-minute timer, you do 1 pull-up for 10 minutes, you do 10 pull-ups. Eventually, maybe you are like, okay, I'm getting more comfortable with these pull-ups. Like we were talking about earlier, like 45 seconds or whatever you're going to have after each round of that is not quite enough rest to really recover. Like by the time you've done 9, 10, like you're struggling on the last one if pull-ups are something you struggle with. So then get to that point where like, okay, I think I got a handle on this. Maybe I can do 2 pull-ups every minute, but then I do 8 minutes instead. But like, so you're really upping your volume, but you're like calibrating it. So yeah, and then you can do push-ups and air squats. Like there's a lot of these like core movements that like people have been doing for such a long time that people can start working into their day and like have such a profound impact on their life, but can really fine tune that to like fit within their schedule.
Yeah.
It's so achievable.
It is. And if we take the perspective of seeing it that way and then implementing these small goals, then it becomes like really achievable. But something I want to get back to like myself is I went and saw a chiropractor like 3 years ago or so. I was experiencing a lot of like lower back pain. And before we even did anything physically, they do like a 2-day training to where they just teach you about like, okay, this is how you need to kind of go about your day doing different tasks to take care of your back. Like if you're at a sink, don't just bend over. Like you need to maybe squat a little bit, sit a little lower. And if you're taller, sorry, Brendan, you probably need to squat really low. But it was like these small changes. And even things like that, like if you're bending over or squatting just to do the dishes or grab something, then you're doing a squat or you're doing like some type of back extension. And there's a little bit of physical activity instead of like bending over your back and then straining a muscle, which I did this past week as well.
There you go.
So yeah, I'm still on this progression of trying to get to that.
You're still on the mend.
Yeah, I'm on the continuum of wellness, trying to move towards it.
Yeah. Yeah, but like, that's a good point, is like figuring out ways where you can kind of sneak things in, and also thinking about like where are some of your areas where you could be limiting yourself to maybe like moving in the right direction, right? Like an injury is a very clear way of limiting yourself from moving in the right direction. And like you were saying, there's a lot of like people can get to the chiropractors and like see other medical professionals and like get some tips and start to figure out their body a little bit more so they can figure out where they can make the most improvement.
Yeah. These little changes. I think that's one of my favorite takeaways from just like our process in general of learning all these different things, is that like small habits and small changes are going to produce the largest result.
Yeah.
But we see instant gratification. We want this giant thing. But it's not going to come just like that unless you hit the lotto.
Yep.
Right?
That's right.
Or plastic surgery, I guess.
But that's expensive.
Something like that.
So you still have to win the lotto.
That goes with the lotto.
Yeah.
Well, Brendan, this has been very nice.
Yeah.
To reflect, Thank you for this time.
Thank you.
And who's our next guest?
I don't even know.
Well, our next guest is a great one. It's Professor Andrew Rainier.
Oh, that's right.
And we talk about masculinity a lot under that topic.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in anything around that, please be sure to check out that episode coming next week. I thought it was a great time to reflect on myself for that. And anything else you want to add, Brendan, in closing?
No, I think that was a great segue. Let's, I don't want to give people too much. I think it'll be an interesting listen.
I think so too.
And I think it'll be a good perspective shift for people on how, maybe some additional areas where we have shortcomings in this country. Things for people to be attentive about and equally have a sense of compassion for where certain people are in their life and how we need to just be compassionate and look after people in general.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks for everyone. Boom. That's it. Good night.